Have you ever felt like you've been running on empty? Like no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to catch a break? I know that feeling. It's like you're carrying a weight that you can't put down, a tiredness that goes deeper than physical exhaustion. But what if I told you that there's a place where you can find rest? A place where your weary soul can finally breathe. Let's talk about Psalm 62. David, a man who faced enemies, struggles, and battles, both internal and external, knew exactly what it was like to feel drained. And in the midst of all that, he found a source of peace that never runs out. Psalm 62 verse 1 starts with a powerful cry. My soul finds rest in God alone. Let that sink in. Rest. True rest. Not the kind you get from a nap, but the kind that comes from the Creator Himself. Today I want to walk with you through this psalm. If you're tired, if you're feeling worn out, let this prayer be a reminder that you can rest in God's peace. Let's dive in together, because God's peace isn't just for the lucky few, it's for you, right here, right now. I want you to picture something for a moment. Imagine being David, the king of Israel. You're supposed to be strong, leading your people, but everywhere you turn, there's trouble. Enemies trying to tear you down. People who should be loyal, turning their backs. The weight of the crown is more like a burden than a symbol of power. You're alone, and you've given all you have, but the exhaustion doesn't go away. Sound familiar? Life can be just like that. You give and give, but it feels like your cup is always empty. You try to keep your head above water, but it's like the waves just keep coming. In Psalm 62, David pours out his soul to God, just as we often do when we've had enough. He says in Psalm 62 verse 1, my soul finds rest in God alone. Alone. Do you hear that? The weight of the world on his shoulders, yet his soul finds its resting place in God. David wasn't just saying these words because he had it all figured out. No, he was desperate. He knew what it was to be physically drained, emotionally spent, and spiritually hollow. But through it all, he clung to a truth that we often forget. God is our ultimate source of rest. You see, it's easy to look at the chaos around us and think, how can I ever find peace? But God's peace isn't about our circumstances. It's about Him. It's about trusting that no matter how tired you are, He is the one who can carry you. So in the midst of your tiredness, your battle, your weariness, I invite you to say these words with David today. My soul finds rest in God alone. Let that truth sink deep into your spirit, because when your soul rests in Him, everything else starts to fall into place. There's something powerful about the idea of rest. Not the kind that comes from taking a nap or binge watching your favorite show, but the rest that transcends everything. Physical exhaustion, mental fatigue, even emotional wounds. David knew this kind of rest because he knew where to place his trust. In Psalm 62 verse 2 he declares, He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, I will never be shaken. That's where David's peace came from. Not in the circumstances around him, not in the people around him, but in the unshakable, immovable strength of God. You see, when life feels like it's falling apart, when it seems like the whole world is crumbling down, God is the rock that won't move. Think about a fortress for a second. A fortress is meant to protect you, to shelter you from the storms that rage outside. But unlike a physical fortress that can be destroyed or broken into, God is a fortress that can never be breached. His protection never fades. His strength never weakens. David wasn't just speaking from a place of faith here, he was speaking from experience. He had been through literal battles, wars, betrayals, and moments when his life hung by a thread. He had been pushed to the brink, yet he found refuge in God. And that's the truth we need to hold on to today. When you're exhausted, when your mind is racing, your heart is heavy, and you don't know how much more you can take, God is the one who offers you something deeper than temporary relief. He offers you a foundation that can't be shaken. So in those moments when you're feeling like everything around you is unstable, remember David's words, "He alone is my rock." Let that be the foundation you stand on. Because when your trust is placed in God, no storm, no struggle, no tiredness can move you. You're anchored in His peace, and that peace doesn't just calm the storm, it transforms you from the inside out. Sometimes it's not just the big, obvious battles that drain us. It's the small, nagging things. The constant pressure, the worry, the fear of what might happen tomorrow. It's the feeling that you're constantly carrying something heavy, like a backpack filled with rocks. Each one seems small at first, but over time, that weight starts to add up. And eventually, you're carrying a burden that you just can't shake. That's where David found himself too. In Psalm 62, verse 3, David cries out, "How long will you assault me? Would all of you throw me down this leaning wall, this tottering fence?" Can you hear the desperation in his voice? He's tired, so tired, not just physically but emotionally. He feels like he's about to fall, like the weight of everything is going to crush him. He's describing himself as a leaning wall, a tottering fence about to collapse under the pressure. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're about to break, like everything's pushing down on you, and you just don't have the strength to fight back anymore. Maybe it's a relationship that's draining you, or a job that feels like it's sucking the life out of you. Maybe it's anxiety or doubt that keeps you awake at night. Or just the overwhelming feeling of trying to juggle everything and never getting a break. David wasn't just talking about physical exhaustion. He was talking about the weight of being under attack. The pressure of carrying things he wasn't meant to carry. And in that moment, he could have crumbled. He could have let that pressure be his downfall. But instead, he turned to God. And that's where we need to focus. On the rest that God offers when we feel like we can't stand any longer. Psalm 62 verse 5 gives us a shift in perspective. David says, "Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from Him." This isn't just a statement, it's a command to his own soul. When everything feels like it's falling apart, when the pressure is unbearable, David tells his soul to find rest in God. He chooses to stop fighting in his own strength and to place his hope, his trust, and his weariness in God's hands. This isn't easy. Trust me, I get it. But it's the kind of rest that goes beyond our understanding. It's the kind of rest that doesn't make sense when everything around us is chaotic. It's the kind of peace that only comes from God, and it's available to you right now. When you feel like you can't carry the weight any longer, God says, "I will carry you." And when you choose to rest in Him, the burden gets lighter. It doesn't mean your problems disappear, but it means you're no longer trying to fight them alone. You're resting in the strength of a God who's bigger than everything you're facing. As we dive deeper into Psalm 62, we start to see the tension that David is facing. His soul is torn. He feels the weight of everything around him, yet he knows in his heart that God is the only place he can find true rest. But here's the thing. David doesn't sugarcoat his emotions. He doesn't pretend like everything is fine. just because he knows God is his refuge. There's a real struggle here. He feels the pressure of his circumstances, and yet he is desperately seeking peace from the one source that can provide it. And isn't that something we all wrestle with? We live in a world where everything is in a constant state of flux. One minute, you're feeling on top of the world, and the next, you're drowning in problems that seem too big to handle. In Psalm 62, verse 6, David says, "He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, I will not be shaken." It's almost as if he's speaking to his own soul, reminding himself, "I know it feels impossible right now, but I know where my hope comes from. I will not be shaken." This is a declaration that we all need to make when our souls feel like they're on the edge. When everything in us is screaming to panic, to give up, to lose hope, we need to take a stand and say, "No, I will not be shaken." It doesn't matter how loud the storm gets. It doesn't matter how many waves crash over us. God is the rock beneath us. But let's be honest, sometimes it feels impossible to believe that, right? Sometimes the weight of our emotions, our fears, and the pressure of our circumstances can drown out the truth that God is unshakable. It's easy to say we trust in God when things are going well, but what happens when we're standing on the edge, feeling like we're about to fall apart? David felt that. He wasn't just writing poetry. He was pouring out his heart in raw desperation. This wasn't a man who had all the answers. This was a man who had faced failure, betrayal, loss, and exhaustion, and still chose to trust in God. This is the key to finding rest in the midst of your struggle. Not pretending it doesn't hurt, but choosing to trust in God anyway. When your soul is weary, when your mind is racing, when you feel like you can't go on another minute, God doesn't expect you to have it all together. He simply wants you to lean into Him. Resting in God doesn't mean pretending like the storm isn't raging. It means finding peace in the middle of it, because you know that He's the only one who can bring calm. So let's take a moment. Breathe. Let the words of Psalm 62 verse 6 sink in. He alone is my rock and my salvation. Repeat it to yourself. Let those words become the truth that anchors you in the storm. When everything else feels unstable, God remains steadfast, and that truth will carry you through. If you've ever tried to find peace when your soul is in turmoil, you know it's not an easy thing. The battle for peace often feels like a tug of war within yourself. One part of you wants to trust God, to rest in His peace, but another part of you feels the overwhelming weight of your circumstances. Your mind races, your heart is heavy, and it's hard to even focus on prayer, let alone experience peace. David understood this internal battle better than most. He knew the turmoil of a soul that was wrestling between faith and fear, peace and panic. In Psalm 62, we see David's struggle in full display. In verse 9, he shifts the focus for a moment, addressing the people around him, those who were trying to tear him down, criticize him, and pressure him. He says, "Low-born men are but a breath, the high-born are but a lie. If weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together, they are only a breath." David isn't just talking about his enemies. He's talking about the voices in our lives that try to weigh us down, the people who demand things from us, the expectations that never seem to stop, the lies we tell ourselves, the doubts that creep in, and the fears that feel so real. These are the things that can make us feel like we're drowning in the battle within. But what does David say? He declares that these voices, these pressures, they're but a breath. They're temporary, fleeting. In the grand scheme of things, they carry no real weight. It's like being caught in a storm, thinking that the wind will never die down, but the reality is, it's just a passing storm. When we face internal struggles, when the voices in our heads and the pressures around us feel so loud, we have to remind ourselves of the truth David is proclaiming here. Everything that tries to control us is temporary. The pressures that tell you you're not enough, the worries that tell you you're doomed, the self-doubt that tells you you'll never make it, they're all lies. They're breaths in the wind, here one moment and gone the next. David knew that even though the battle within was real, it was God's voice that mattered most. It's God's promises that endure. When you're struggling to find rest, to silence the noise in your head, remember that those fears, doubts, and expectations have no power over you unless you give them power. You can't let them become the defining force in your life. Instead, let the truth of who God is, your rock, your salvation, your fortress, become the loudest voice in your heart. Rest doesn't come from fighting every battle inside of you. It comes from letting God win those battles for you. Let Him quiet the storm in your heart. Let Him silence the lies. God's truth is the only thing that will give your soul the peace it desperately craves. So when you feel like your mind is racing and your heart is unsettled, turn your focus to God, who is unshaken and unwavering. He's the one who brings the calm. He's the one who gives rest to the weary soul. Have you ever had moments when you felt like there was just no way out of your situation? When the weight of everything was too much and you wondered if things would ever change? David, in his deepest moments of anguish, knew what that felt like. He knew the feeling of being in the pit, surrounded by enemies, and on the verge of collapse. But it's in these moments that we see something beautiful unfold in Psalm 62. David begins to lean into something far deeper than his circumstances. He leans to the unchanging, faithful love of God. In Psalm 62, verse 7, David declares, "My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge." David knew that despite everything falling apart around him, God was the constant. His salvation, his honor, his very identity rested in God alone. Not in his ability to fight battles or find solutions on his own, but in the strength and love of God. And this truth was what brought him the peace he desperately needed. You see, when we face trials, especially the ones that feel impossible to overcome, we often start looking for solutions within ourselves. We try to power through, fix things, control what we can, or run away from the problem altogether. But David teaches us that true peace comes when we surrender to the fact that our strength isn't enough. God's strength is, God's love is. When you're running on empty, when you've hit your breaking point, there's one place you can always go for refuge: His steadfast love. God's love isn't just a nice idea. It's the very thing that holds you together when everything else is falling apart. His love doesn't change based on your performance, your circumstances, or your ability to do it all. His love is the steady anchor, the refuge you can run to when the world is swirling around you. David doesn't just see God as a distant, impersonal force. He sees Him as his refuge, his place of safety in the middle of chaos. And that's what makes the difference between rest and unrest. When you lean into God's love, when you let it wrap around you like a blanket of comfort, you don't just find rest from your circumstances, you find rest for your soul. The thing is, that kind of peace doesn't come from external change. It comes from an internal shift, a shift in where you place your trust. when you realize that no matter how crazy life gets, God's love is constant. That's when true peace settles in. So today, right now, remember this: you are not alone. Even in the middle of your exhaustion, even in the thick of your battles, God's steadfast love is holding you up. His rock is immovable. His refuge is waiting for you to take refuge in Him. No matter how tired you are, He is stronger, and in His arms you can find rest. In the midst of exhaustion and struggle, it's easy to start asking questions that often come from a place of desperation. When will this end? How much longer do I have to endure this? God, why is it taking so long for you to step in? We all wrestle with these questions when we're waiting for change, especially when we're so tired that we feel like we can't go another day. But here's the reality: waiting on God is hard. It's incredibly hard when you're drained, and everything around you seems to be moving at a pace that feels like it's against you. David was no stranger to waiting. In Psalm 62, he writes in verse 8, "Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge." You can almost hear the urgency in his words, "at all times." Not just when it's easy, not just when you can see the end of the tunnel, but at all times, in the moments when you don't know where your strength is going to come from, in the moments when your faith is shaken and your hope feels like it's slipping away. David isn't just telling us to trust God when everything is going well. He's telling us to trust God when everything seems uncertain, when we're tired, when we're tempted to doubt. It's in those moments of waiting, of not knowing what comes next, that God invites us to trust Him the most. Because it's in our waiting that He's doing something in us, refining us, building our character, teaching us to rely not on our own strength, but on His. This is where the struggle lies for most of us. The waiting. We don't like it. We want instant relief. But trust in God's timing is part of finding rest. We don't always get the answers right away. We don't always see the solution immediately. But God is faithful, and He works in the unseen, even when we can't understand how or why. His timing isn't the same as ours. His ways are higher than our ways. And when we learn to trust His timing, even in our exhaustion, we start to experience a peace that surpasses our understanding. Think about this for a moment. Every single story of God's deliverance in the Bible involves waiting. Abraham had to wait for God's promise of a son, and he was far past the age of having children. Joseph had to wait in prison, though he was promised greatness. The Israelites waited 400 years in captivity before God set them free. Even Jesus, the Savior of the world, waited until the perfect time to begin His ministry. Waiting isn't a punishment. It's part of God's plan for us. It's in the waiting that we learn to trust Him more fully. So if you're tired of waiting, if you feel like you can't take one more minute of being in the same place, take a deep breath and remember, God's timing is perfect. It may not make sense right now, but He's working behind the scenes, and in that waiting, He is giving you peace. Peace that doesn't depend on the situation around you, but on the God who's in control of it all. At some point, we all reach that breaking point, the place where we realize we just can't carry the load any longer. The place where all the strategies, all the plans, and all the strength we've been relying on have run out. We feel powerless, hopeless, and overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it all. It's in these moments when we feel like we've hit rock bottom that God's invitation to us is one of surrender. I know, surrender doesn't sound like the kind of word you want to hear when you're in the middle of a storm. We think of surrender as giving up, admitting defeat. But in the kingdom of God, surrender isn't about weakness, it's about strength. It's about recognizing that on our own we will always fall short, but in God there is nothing impossible. David speaks to this surrender in Psalm 62 verse 9 when he says, "Surely the lowborn are but a breath, the highborn are but a lie. If weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath." He is acknowledging that regardless of our status, whether we have everything in the world or nothing, without God, we are nothing. He's saying, I cannot do this on my own. And in this realization, David finds peace, because he is letting go of the need to control and placing his trust entirely in God's hands. When we're tired, we often try to hold on to whatever little control we have left. We hold on to the illusion that if we just try harder, do more, or push through, we can fix things ourselves. But true peace comes not from striving, but from surrender. It's when we lay our burdens down before God, acknowledging that He is the only one who can bring the change, that we find rest. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Just before he was about to face his darkest hour, crucifixion, he prayed to God, "Not my will, but yours be done." Jesus, in his humanity, was weary, troubled, and on the verge of giving up. But he surrendered to the Father's plan. He found peace not by avoiding the pain, but by trusting that the Father knew what he was doing. And in that surrender, he found strength to carry on, to face what he had to face for the ultimate purpose of salvation. This is the kind of surrender that brings peace. It's not about resigning to a fate that's out of your control, but about choosing to trust that God's plan is better than anything we could try to force on our own. When you surrender your worries, your plans, your fears, when you say, "God, I can't do this on my own anymore," that's when He steps in. That's when the peace that passes all understanding begins to fill your soul. Surrendering is not a one-time event. It's a choice we make every single day. Each moment that you choose to let go of your own plans and trust in God's purpose, you're moving closer to the peace that David speaks about in Psalm 62. So today, let go of whatever you're holding on to. Surrender the need to control everything and let God take the reins. His love, His power, His peace are more than enough to carry you through. When we're facing battles, whether emotional, spiritual, or physical, it's easy to feel exposed. It's like walking through a storm with nothing but a flimsy umbrella to protect us. The wind howls, the rain soaks through, and we feel utterly vulnerable. But here's the powerful truth that David reminds us of. God's protection is not like our temporary defenses. It's a protection that doesn't falter. It doesn't give way under pressure. It doesn't get blown away by the storms of life. In Psalm 62 verse 7, David writes, "He is my mighty rock, my refuge." David knew that no matter how fierce the attack, no matter how relentless the enemy, God was his fortress, his unshakable, unmovable refuge. And that is the kind of protection that gives your soul peace. Not the protection of someone who will eventually let you down, but the protection of a God who never leaves, never fails, and always stands strong. There's something deeply comforting about the idea of a refuge. A refuge is a place where you can run to when you're under attack, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and when life feels too much to bear. A refuge isn't just a shelter. It's a safe haven, a place where you can rest without fear of being harmed. And God is that place. Think of David when he was on the run from Saul. Saul wanted to kill him, and David was constantly in hiding, always on the move, always looking over his shoulder. But even in those dark and terrifying times, David found shelter in God. In Psalm 18, David praises God for being his refuge in times of trouble. "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer." Psalm 18, verse 2. The same God who protected David in his darkest hours is the same God who promises to protect you. We don't need to fear when we are in the presence of God. His protection doesn't just shield us from harm, it also shields us from the spiritual exhaustion of trying to fight on our own. When we feel like we're being attacked from all sides, God calls us to run to Him for refuge. And when we find rest in Him, we stop fighting the battle in our own strength. We surrender the fight to Him, trusting that He is the one who will deliver us. This isn't just about physical protection. It's about emotional, mental, and spiritual security as well. When you're mentally exhausted, feeling like you can't take one more thing, God's peace is the refuge you need. When your heart is heavy with grief, doubt, or anxiety, He is the safe place where you can pour out your heart without fear of rejection. His protection covers you completely, from the inside out. So take a moment right now to rest in that truth. God is your mighty rock. He is your refuge. No matter what storm you're facing, no matter how tired or worn out you feel, God's protection is all around you. You can rest, knowing that you are safe in His care. The world may be chaotic, and your circumstances may feel overwhelming, but in God, you are completely shielded. His peace will guard your heart and mind, and when you let Him protect you, you can find the rest your soul is so desperately craving. When you're in the thick of it, feeling drained, overwhelmed, like the weight of everything is more than you can bear, it's easy to forget that God doesn't just offer us peace and rest. He also provides for our every need. We often get so focused on the exhaustion, the struggle, and the pain that we lose sight of the fact that God is also our provider. In the moments when we feel like we've given everything, God is right there, offering us the strength and resources we need to keep going. David's words in Psalm 62 remind us that God's provision isn't just about the physical things we need to survive. It's about the deeper needs, the peace we need for our hearts, the courage we need to keep moving, and the hope we need to hold on to. In Psalm 62, verse 5, David says, "Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from Him." Notice that David didn't say, "Find rest in your circumstances," or "Find rest in other people," or even, "Find rest in what you can accomplish." No, he says, "Find rest in God alone." Why does he say this? Because he knows that God is the only one who can provide the rest our souls desperately need. There is nothing in this world, no career, no relationship, no success, that can give you lasting peace. All of those things can leave us empty, exhausted, and longing for more. But God's provision is different. It's abundant. It's complete. It's more than enough to sustain you when you feel like you can't go on. David also knew that when we trust God as our provider, we're not left to figure it all out on our own. In our weariness, we might feel like there's no way out, no solution, no breakthrough in sight. But God, in His unfailing love, sees what we need even when we don't know how to ask. Sometimes, His provision isn't about giving us everything we think we need at the moment. It's about giving us what's best for us, even when we can't see it. In the story of the Israelites in the wilderness, they spent 40 years walking in a dry and barren place. But even in that desert, God provided for them. Every day they were fed by manna from heaven, a bread that appeared each morning, just enough for the day. God didn't give them a year's worth of food at once. He gave them what they needed for the day, teaching them to trust Him day by day. When they were exhausted, tired from the journey, God was faithful to provide. He met them where they were, and God will meet you where you are too. If you're weary, feeling like you've given all you have and there's nothing left, trust that God will provide what you need for today. He's not asking you to carry everything all at once. He's not expecting you to figure it all out by yourself. He is a faithful provider, and He will give you the strength, the peace, and the hope you need to keep moving forward. So, instead of trying to hold it all together on your own, why not rest in the provision of God? Instead of looking for solutions in all the wrong places, turn to the one who knows exactly what you need. In your moments of exhaustion, turn your heart to God and trust that He is providing for you in ways you can't even imagine. And when you embrace His provision, you'll find that the peace and rest you're searching for don't come from your own effort. They come from His faithful hands. If there's one thing that causes exhaustion and unrest more than anything else, it's the constant need to control everything around us. We try to manage every detail, fix every problem, and maintain the illusion that we can keep it all together. But the truth is, no matter how much we try to control, there's always something outside our grasp. And the more we hold on tightly, the more we find ourselves drained, overwhelmed, and desperately clinging to things that we were never meant to carry. David had his fair share of situations where he could have tried to control everything around him, his enemies, his kingship, his future. But what did he do instead? He surrendered to God. He trusted God to fight the battles he couldn't fight on his own. And in Psalm 62, David repeatedly calls out to God as his fortress, his rock, his refuge, the one who is in control when everything around him feels chaotic. In verse 8, David makes a profound statement. Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. This is more than just a simple invitation. It's a command to let go of the illusion of control. When we try to control everything, we only add to our stress and anxiety. But when we pour out our hearts to God, when we acknowledge that we are powerless to change things on our own, we make space for God to step in. That's when we find peace. Letting go of control isn't easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things we can do. We want to believe that if we just work harder or try more, we can fix everything ourselves. But this mindset only leads to exhaustion. God doesn't ask us to have it all figured out. He doesn't expect us to carry every burden, solve every problem, or control every outcome. Instead, He calls us to trust Him. He calls us to release our grip on things we can't change and to rest in His sovereignty. There's freedom in letting go. It's the freedom to stop striving and start trusting. When you stop trying to carry the weight of the world, you begin to feel the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. This peace doesn't depend on you getting everything right. It doesn't depend on you fixing everything. It depends on you trusting in the one who holds everything in His hands. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, Paul writes, "But He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." When we let go of control, we make room for God's strength to take over. When we're running on empty, feeling like we've given everything we have, the last thing we may think to do is to seek God's presence. We tend to think that God's presence is something we experience when we're on top of the world, full of energy, ready to take on anything. But the reality is, God's presence isn't just for the moments when everything is going well. In fact, it's often in our deepest moments of exhaustion and despair that we need God's presence the most. And it's in those moments that He's closest to us. David understood this intimately. He wasn't just a king in a palace. He was a man who had been in the wilderness, running for his life, hiding from enemies, battling loneliness, and struggling with fear. And yet, even in his darkest moments, he found peace in the presence of God. Psalm 62 verse 8 speaks to this. Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. Notice the words David uses, pour out your hearts to Him. This is a picture of being completely open, raw, and vulnerable before God, acknowledging that we have nothing left and everything to gain by being in His presence. The thing about God's presence is that it doesn't require us to have it all together. It's not for the perfect or the strong. It's for the weary, the broken, and the tired. When we're tired, our inclination is often to pull away from God. We feel like we're not good enough to approach Him, or we think He's only available when we're at our best. But God's presence is a refuge for the exhausted. It's the place where our souls can finally breathe. Think about Jesus in Matthew 11 verse 28 to 30. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." This is the heart of God for us. He doesn't want us to carry our burdens alone. He invites us to come to Him just as we are, tired, worn out, and broken, and find rest. God's presence is where we exchange our exhaustion for His peace. David's cry in Psalm 62 is an invitation to each of us. In the midst of our struggles, when we feel like we're on the verge of collapse, God calls us to pour out our hearts to Him. This is more than just a call to pray. It's an invitation to bring our full, unfiltered selves before God. It's about being honest with Him, sharing our deepest fears, our weariness, and our pain, knowing that He listens and understands. This is the beauty of God's presence. He meets us where we are. You don't have to clean yourself up before you come to Him. You don't have to be strong or have everything figured out. In fact, it's in your weakness that His strength is most evident. When you bring your exhaustion, your pain, your questions to God, you're inviting His presence into the very places where you need it the most. And in that presence, you'll find the rest your soul is longing for. God's presence isn't just a momentary comfort. It's a continual source of peace and strength. When you make space for Him in your life, even in your busiest, most exhausting seasons, you'll discover that He's always there. The more you lean into His presence, the more you'll find that your soul can rest, even in the midst of chaos. God doesn't just offer us peace. He is our peace. And when we seek Him, we find rest, not just for our bodies, but for our hearts and minds as well. In the chaos of life, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that God is sovereign. We live in a world that constantly tells us that we need to have everything under control, that we need to handle everything ourselves, and that success depends on our ability to manage every detail. But what if true peace comes not from controlling everything, but from resting in the truth that God is in control? David, in Psalm 62, had every reason to feel overwhelmed and afraid. He was a king, yes, but he was also a man who had faced personal failure, public betrayal, and countless battles. Yet despite the overwhelming circumstances around him, David repeatedly returns to the truth of God's sovereignty. In Psalm 62, verse 11, he writes, "One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard. Power belongs to you, God." David was proclaiming that, no matter what, all power belongs to God. Not to his enemies, not to the circumstances, not even to the difficulties he faced. Power belongs to God, and because of this, David could find rest. When we truly rest in God's sovereignty, we stop trying to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We stop feeling like we have to fix everything or manage every situation. We can trust that God, in His infinite wisdom and power, is working everything together for our good, even when we don't understand how or why. Resting in His sovereignty means surrendering our need for control and choosing to trust that He knows best. There's a deep, unshakable joy that comes when we truly believe that God is in control. It's a joy that transcends circumstances, because it's rooted in the fact that God is never surprised by anything. He's not caught off guard by the struggles we face. He's not worried about how things are going to turn out. He is fully in control, and His plans will always prevail. And when we rest in this truth, we can experience a peace that doesn't make sense to the world around us, a peace that passes understanding. Think about the story of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused, and thrown into prison for years. Joseph's life seemed like one failure after another. But when he finally stood before his brothers again, he said something that reflects this deep understanding of God's sovereignty. In Genesis 50:20, he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph wasn't just resting in the fact that God had eventually brought him into a position of power. He was resting in the truth that God had been in control the entire time. Even in the darkest moments of his life, when everything seemed out of his control, Joseph trusted that God was working out a greater plan. And this is the same God we serve today. The same God who was in control of Joseph's life is the same God who is in control of yours. No matter how chaotic or uncertain things may seem, you can rest in the knowledge that God is sovereign over every detail. This doesn't mean everything will always go the way we want, but it does mean that God's plan for us is far better than any plan we could create for ourselves. When you rest in God's sovereignty, you let go of the pressure to have all the answers. You stop believing that you need to fix everything, that you need to control every outcome, or that it's all up to you. Instead, you trust that God is good, that He is in control, and that He is working everything together for your good and His glory. So right now, take a moment to rest in this truth. God is sovereign. The weight of the world doesn't rest on your shoulders. The pressure to control every outcome, to solve every problem, to manage every situation, it's not yours to bear. Rest in the peace that comes from knowing God is fully in control, and because of that, you can trust Him with every detail of your life. In this truth, there is joy, and in that joy, there is rest. In a world where everything is constantly changing, people, circumstances, even our own emotions, it's easy to become exhausted from the constant flux. We chase after stability, looking for something we can count on, something that won't let us down. But here's the amazing truth. While everything else in life may change, God's character never does. His faithfulness, His love, His goodness, these things remain constant no matter what. And that's where our true rest comes from. David, in Psalm 62, had been through so much. He faced betrayal, injustice, and pain. But throughout it all, he knew that he could rest in the unchanging nature of God. He declared in Psalm 62 verse 2, "He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken." In other words, God's character is steadfast, and because of that, David knew that he could rest no matter how unstable his circumstances were. Isn't that a relief to hear? When we're exhausted and weary, it's easy to believe that everything is unstable. People let us down. Situations don't go as planned. Our health may fail us or our finances may be shaky. But God, He doesn't change. His promises don't fail. His love never wavers. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's the kind of rock we can lean on when everything around us feels like it's crumbling. God's unchanging character is a foundation that gives us peace. We don't have to worry that God will change His mind about us or that He'll stop being faithful. Even when we feel unworthy, even when we fail, God's love for us remains constant. His commitment to us doesn't depend on our performance or circumstances. It depends on who He is. And who God is always good. Think about how this would change the way we live if we truly grasped it. So often, our peace is tied to the things we can control. Our work, our relationships, our health. But all of these things are temporary. We can lose them in a second. But God is eternal. His love is eternal. His promises are eternal. And when we find our peace in that truth, we can rest in a way that the world can't offer. David also understood that when he put his trust in the unchanging God, he wasn't just seeking temporary relief, he was seeking eternal peace. His relationship with God wasn't about his circumstances being perfect. It was about trusting in a perfect God who was with him, no matter what. Psalm 62 verse 7 again speaks to this. "My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge." It's easy to look at our problems and feel like they define us. We define ourselves by our struggles, our failures, our brokenness. But when we rest in God's unchanging character, we stop defining ourselves by our circumstances. We begin to define ourselves by who God says we are. We are His beloved children, chosen, redeemed, and deeply loved, not because of what we've done, but because of who He is. When you're feeling tired and defeated, remind yourself that God's character is unshakable. He's not like the people in your life who may fail you, nor is He like the situations that may let you down. His faithfulness is a constant anchor for your soul. And as you rest in His unchanging nature, you'll find that He is the only source of peace that never falters, never fades, and never disappoints. So when the exhaustion of life weighs heavy on your shoulders, let God's character be the refuge you run to. Let His love, His goodness, and His faithfulness be the rock that holds you steady. Because no matter what changes, no matter how hard life gets, God remains. And in Him, you will find the peace and rest your soul desperately craves. When we're exhausted, when we're stretched thin, when every part of us is screaming for relief, it's easy to start thinking that we need to do more. We believe that somehow, if we just push harder, if we just give more of ourselves, we can overcome the exhaustion, the burnout, the endless cycle of doing. But here's the hard truth that we often forget. Rest doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less and trusting God with the outcome. David had learned this deep truth through his many trials. In Psalm 62 verse 5, he speaks directly to his soul, saying, "Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from Him." In this declaration, David wasn't just talking to God. He was preaching to himself. He was reminding his own soul that true rest comes from complete dependence on God. It's a rest that isn't earned by striving or performing. It's given freely by God when we stop trying to hold everything together on our own. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if we just keep pushing ourselves, if we just work a little harder, we'll eventually get a break. But what happens is that we end up empty. We give so much of ourselves, trying to solve problems, trying to meet demands, trying to make everything right, that we lose sight of the fact that true peace comes when we stop striving and simply trust God. Jesus, in Matthew 6:25-34, speaks to this same concept when he tells us not to worry about our life, what we will eat or drink or wear, because our Heavenly Father knows what we need. He tells us to seek first His kingdom, and all these things will be added to us. Jesus is inviting us to stop striving, to stop constantly worrying about the next thing, and to trust that God will take care of the rest. This doesn't mean that we don't work or plan or make efforts. It means that we do all of those things in the knowledge that God is the one who brings fruit from our labor. When you let go of the weight of trying to control everything, you open yourself up to the peace that only He can give. That's the kind of rest your soul was made for. The kind of rest that comes when you finally surrender everything to God and trust that He's got it under control. Resting in God isn't just about finding a temporary escape from our problems. It's about experiencing a deep, soul-level transformation that shifts our entire perspective on life. When we truly rest in God's peace, it doesn't just bring relief from exhaustion, it brings renewal, strength, and clarity in ways that we can't fully understand at first. The act of surrendering our control, our worries, and our efforts into His hands isn't just an act of submission. It's an act of faith, and that faith has the power to transform everything. David speaks to this transformative peace in Psalm 62, not just as a concept, but as a lived reality. In verse 7 he writes, "My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge." This wasn't some abstract thought to David. It was a deep truth he had experienced in the highs and lows of his life. Through every trial, every battle, and every loss, David had learned that resting in God wasn't just about finding temporary peace. It was about receiving a strength that wasn't his own. It was about tapping into a source of peace and power that could carry him through even the darkest moments. Think about the incredible shift that happens when we move from striving to resting. The world tells us that we have to work hard to earn everything: our peace, our success, our security. But God's kingdom operates differently. In God's kingdom, peace is a gift, not something we can work for. And when we begin to receive that peace, it changes us. It takes us from the endless cycle of trying to control and fix everything to the freedom of trusting that God is already at work on our behalf. This shift is more than just emotional relief. It's a spiritual transformation. It's a change from living in a constant state of anxiety and exhaustion to living in a place of surrender and trust. When you rest in God's peace, your heart is no longer focused on the what-ifs or how-longs. It's focused on the truth that God is present with you, that His plans are good, and that His timing is perfect. This change in perspective doesn't just make us feel better, it makes us stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with God's will. The Apostle Paul understood this transformation. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, he talks about how God told him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul's weakness, his exhaustion, his struggles were the very places where God's power was most clearly seen. This is the paradox of resting in God's peace. It's in our weakness, in our tiredness, in our surrender, that God's strength is made perfect. When we stop fighting in our own strength and begin resting in God's peace, we are actually opening the door for His power to flow through us. This is why true rest in God isn't just about taking a break from the busyness of life. It's about embracing a new way of living. It's about living from a place of deep trust, knowing that no matter what happens, we are held by the God who never grows weary. And this peace, this rest, doesn't just last for a few hours or days. It sustains us. It becomes a permanent foundation beneath our feet. The more we practice resting in God, the more we begin to see our circumstances differently. We start to see obstacles as opportunities for God's power to be revealed. We start to see challenges as invitations to grow in trust. We stop looking at everything through the lens of fear and exhaustion and start seeing everything through the lens of faith and hope. And this transformation doesn't just happen in our hearts. It starts to affect everything around us. We become more patient, more kind, more at peace with ourselves and with others. We become a living testimony of the power of God's peace to transform our lives. David's life is a testament to this transformation. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, but he continually returned to God as his refuge, his rock, and his source of strength. Through every hardship, he learned that peace with God was the only true peace that could sustain him. And that same peace is available to you today. No matter how tired, no matter how overwhelmed you may feel, God's peace has the power to transform you from the inside out. So take a deep breath and rest in that peace. Don't just seek temporary relief, but seek the deep, abiding peace that God offers. Let it transform you. Let it renew your strength, and let it guide you into a life where you no longer rely on your own power, but on the all-sufficient strength of God. When you rest in His peace, you're not just getting through the day, you're being transformed by the very power of God that raised Jesus from the dead. That's the kind of rest that changes everything. When we talk about rest, it's easy to think of it as something temporary. A quick reprieve from the chaos, an hour of silence, a weekend getaway. While those moments of physical rest are important, there's a deeper, more eternal rest that God offers. A rest that doesn't fade away once our bodies are tired again. It's the kind of rest that endures, that holds us up, not just for today, but for the rest of our lives, and even beyond. This eternal rest is rooted in God's promise, a promise that is unbreakable and unfailing, no matter what happens in our lives. David in Psalm 62 reflects on this eternal foundation of peace when he says, "He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken." Psalm 62:2. Notice how David ties his rest and his security to the eternal nature of God. He doesn't say that his rest is based on his circumstances being perfect. He doesn't say that his peace depends on a good job, healthy relationships, or smooth paths ahead. No, his rest is rooted in God alone, the one unchanging, everlasting source of peace. This kind of rest isn't just about physical or mental relief. It's a spiritual rest, a peace that comes from knowing that no matter how stormy life may get, God's promise remains steadfast. The Apostle Paul speaks to this eternal rest in Philippians 4:7 when he writes, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This peace isn't based on our circumstances, it transcends them. It goes beyond our understanding because it is a peace that comes from the unshakable, eternal promise of God. And when we rest in that peace, our souls are not just calmed for a moment, they are anchored for eternity. God's promise is not something that can be shaken by the events of this world. It's not something that will expire or be taken away when life gets hard. God's promise is the assurance that He is always with us, always faithful, and always working in our lives, even when we can't see it. This eternal rest comes from the confidence that no matter what we face, we have a future that is secure in God's hands. Take a moment to think about that. Your future is secure in God's hands. When we rest in God's peace, we rest in the assurance that He is not only with us in the present, but that He holds our future. The stress of wondering what's next, what's going to happen, what's around the corner, it all fades away when we recognize that God is already there. And because of this, we don't have to fear what's coming. We don't have to dread the unknown, because we know the one who holds the future, and His love for us is unshakable. This eternal rest that we find in God is ultimately fulfilled in the hope of eternal life with Him. The writer of Hebrews speaks to this hope when he describes the rest that remains for God's people. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from His. Hebrews 4:9-10. This Sabbath rest is a picture of the ultimate peace and security we will experience when we are fully united with God, when all our striving, all our pain, and all our burdens are forever laid down. Until that day comes, we can live in the light of this promise. The rest that God offers isn't just something we experience in moments of quiet. It's something that we can carry with us throughout our entire lives. It's a rest that begins here on earth, but it doesn't end here. It's a rest that extends into eternity, when we are finally at peace with God forever, and all our struggles will be no more. But for now, even in the midst of a chaotic, weary world, we can rest in the hope that this eternal peace is already ours in Christ. As we wait for that final perfect rest in heaven, we can experience the taste of it here and now. And when we choose to rest in God's promise, we can be confident that He will never leave us, never forsake us, and will always lead us into His perfect peace. So whatever you're facing right now, whatever trials, stresses, or worries may be weighing on you, take a moment to pause and remember that you have a future that is secure in Christ. His promise of eternal rest is yours today and forever. Let that truth anchor your soul and let it give you the strength to press on. Because in the end, the rest that God gives isn't just a temporary relief. It's a promise that will last for eternity. And in that promise, we find true peace. One of the most powerful transformations that comes when we rest in God is that we begin to live from a place of deep inner peace, instead of striving for external success or validation. The more we embrace God's rest, the more we realize that we don't have to earn His love or prove our worth or fight for every little bit of peace. Instead, we're able to live in a way that reflects the truth that God's peace is already ours, that we don't have to work for it. It's a gift, a reality that we simply need to receive. And it's in this place of peace and rest that our lives begin to overflow with God's strength. This shift, from living in a state of constant striving to living in a state of peace, allows us to operate in a strength that is not our own. When we're constantly running on empty, trying to hold everything together, we rely on our own strength, which will always fall short. But when we rest in God, we tap into His infinite strength, and it's His strength that carries us through our daily lives. As David reflects on in Psalm 62, he constantly reminds himself that his strength comes from God alone. In Psalm 62 verse 11, David says, "One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard, power belongs to you, God." The incredible thing about this truth is that it doesn't just apply in moments of crisis or desperation. It applies to every single day. God's strength is available to us, not just in the times when we're desperate, but in our daily lives, in the mundane, in the ordinary moments. When we allow God's peace to rest in our hearts, we begin to function from a place of God's power, not our own. This doesn't mean we don't face challenges. It means we approach them from a place of rest, knowing that God's strength will carry us through, and His peace will guard us as we move forward. Living from a place of rest doesn't mean we stop working or stop engaging with life. Far from it. It means that we begin to do everything in life with a sense of trust in God's provision and timing. It means that when the challenges come, whether it's a tough project, a difficult relationship, or an unexpected obstacle, we face them with confidence, knowing that we are not doing it alone. We are living from God's strength, and that makes all the difference. Think about how different our approach to life could be if we truly lived from a place of rest. Imagine facing a difficult conversation, not with anxiety, but with peace, trusting that God will give you the words and the wisdom. Imagine tackling your day's tasks, not with stress, but with a deep assurance that God's strength is with you in every moment. Imagine responding to people not out of frustration, but with grace, because you are secure in the peace that God has already given you. This is what it means to live from a place of rest. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, practice, and a willingness to surrender our need to control everything. But the more we allow ourselves to rest in God's peace, the more we start to live in His strength, His wisdom, and His power. And this rest, this peace, becomes a deep well that we can draw from, no matter what life throws our way. David didn't just pray for rest in the midst of his struggles. He understood that his strength from the God who had already provided rest. That's why, despite facing relentless opposition, betrayal, and pressure, he was able to stand firm and say, "I will never be shaken." He wasn't relying on his own strength or his own ability to solve every problem. He was resting in God, trusting that the Lord would be his fortress and his refuge. And because of this, he found the strength to endure whatever came his way. In the same way, God calls us to live with that kind of peace, that kind of trust. We are called to live from the truth that God is our strength, our refuge, and our source of peace. When we learn to rest in Him, we stop trying to force things to happen, and instead we move through life with a sense of calm confidence. Our actions come from a place of trust, not fear. We work, we serve, we love, we engage, but we do it all from a place of deep rest in God. This shift, from striving to trusting, from stress to peace, has the power to change everything. It changes the way we handle pressure, it changes the way we deal with failure, and it changes the way we approach success. We stop looking for external validation or control, and we start living from a place of security in who we are in Christ. And in that place of security, God's strength flows through us, enabling us to do what we could never do on our own. So, as you go through your day, remember this. You don't have to strive for peace. You can rest in it. You don't have to rely on your own strength. You can live from God's. And when you do, you'll find that the peace you once longed for doesn't just come as a fleeting moment. It becomes a deep, abiding reality that strengthens and sustains you for the long run. As we come to the end of this journey of exploring Psalm 62 and the rest that only God can provide, I want you to pause for a moment and truly reflect on where you are right now. No matter where you find yourself, whether you're feeling physically drained, emotionally overwhelmed, or spiritually weary, God's peace is available to you in abundance. This peace isn't a temporary escape. It's a deep, lasting rest that sustains you for the journey ahead, no matter how long or difficult that journey might be. The beauty of Psalm 62 is that it doesn't promise that we won't face trials, struggles, or moments of deep exhaustion. What it promises is that in the midst of those moments, we can rest in God's faithfulness, His strength, and His unchanging character. David's words, "He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken," Psalm 62:2, are not just a declaration of what he believed in the past, but a reminder of what we can cling to in every season of our lives. His trust in God was not based on the absence of struggles. It was rooted in the certainty that, no matter what, God was the unshakable foundation beneath him. When you rest in God's peace, you're not ignoring the challenges in your life. You're choosing to trust that, no matter how hard things may seem, God is with you every step of the way. He is your rock, your fortress, your refuge. He is the one who carries you through, who strengthens you in your weakness, and who gives you rest for your soul. This peace, this rest, is a gift that can sustain you not just for a season, but for the entirety of your life. And it's this rest, this deep, soul-level peace that enables you to move forward. It doesn't just stop your heart from racing or ease your mind temporarily. It empowers you to face whatever comes next with strength and confidence. You begin to see your struggles not as obstacles to overcome, but as opportunities for God's strength to be made perfect in your weakness. As the Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.'" Living from a place of rest doesn't mean you will never experience hardship again. It means that when hardship comes, you will be rooted in something unshakable. The storms of life will still come, the trials will still challenge you, but your foundation will be secure in God's unchanging nature. You will no longer be tossed around by the winds of worry, fear, or exhaustion. Instead, you will stand firm, knowing that you are held by the one who has the power to calm the storm. It's also important to remember that this rest doesn't just happen passively. It's a choice you make every day. David didn't just rest in God's peace because he was a king. He rested because he continually chose to place his trust in God, even when it didn't make sense. Resting in God is a daily decision to stop striving and start trusting. It's a decision to let go of control, to stop trying to fight every battle on your own, and to surrender to God's will and timing. And here's the most powerful part of all. When you make that choice to rest in God's peace, you don't just experience relief. You become a living witness of God's power. Your peace becomes a testimony to others that no matter how dark or overwhelming the world may seem, God's peace is stronger. Your ability to rest in the midst of trials speaks volumes about the trust you've placed in Him. It becomes a powerful reminder that God is faithful, that His peace is real, and that His presence is enough. As you move forward from this time of prayer and reflection, I want to encourage you to keep returning to the truths of Psalm 62. When life feels too heavy, when the weight of the world is pressing in on you, remember that you have a refuge in God. When exhaustion sets in and you feel like you have nothing left to give, remember that God's peace is there for you to rest in. His strength is available to you. His power is made perfect in your weakness, and His promise to carry you through is unbreakable. So as you close your eyes tonight or start your day tomorrow, I want you to take a deep breath and rest in God's presence. Let His peace fill you to the brim. Let go of the need to control. Let go of the exhaustion that's weighing you down. And trust that God is with you, that He is your rock, your fortress, and your refuge. No matter what comes next, you are never alone. As you embrace the rest that God offers, may you be filled with His peace, His strength, and His unwavering love. And remember, no matter where life takes you, you can always return to the rest and peace that only God can provide. You don't have to do it all on your own. Rest in Him and let His peace guard your heart and mind, today and always. If this prayer and time of reflection has blessed you, take a moment to share it with someone else who may need to hear these words. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment below. I'd love to hear how this prayer has impacted your heart today. Stay encouraged, stay rested in God's peace, and I'll see you in the next video.